Three, two, one. Hi, and welcome to yet another expat. This is episode 21. I hope you're doing well, either drying in the sun and boiling in high temperatures or soaking wet, depending in what part of the world you are. I hope you're doing well and thank you for pressing play on this podcast. 21 episodes. This is quite wild for me. My birthday is the 21st and 21 is half of 42, which is the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. So, quite a significant milestone. I should have probably done this on episode 20, but hey, I am not sure if I believed I will keep the podcast for so long when I started more than half a year ago. If the podcast was the same as my workout promises, I would probably be shirtless somewhere outside now instead of being inside here again shirtless. But just to wrap this up, you know how the deal goes. Some thoughts, some news, some observations, some fun facts, or not so fun, is what we're going to go through for this week's episode. So let's give it a go. Okay, first things first, the Olympics have started. There is no way you have escaped from this, even if you're hiding under a rock. I'm not sure if you saw the ceremony, the opening ceremony. You probably were forced to by your social media or news, even if you didn't tune in. I did. I've lost every Olympic ceremony after 2004, hashtag Greece, hashtag Athens. So I was quite curious to see what the French will do. I would say, overall, a bit of mayhem with good moments. Sadly, a shit ton of rain. The shots were pretty bad. The cinematography, the frames and all that. I can understand. The biggest difference in this one is that it was a moving parade. It was through the city and through the river. And I have to give it to the French because usually when you have the Olympics, you use your biggest stadium or you build a shit ton of stadiums. Greece built 22, I think Rio built 12 or Beijing. And there is a lot of construction and a lot of cost associated. So actually, the French are trying to do a different approach, which is probably much more sustainable for the future. Parenthesis, you can look to what happened in countries that had the Olympics and overbuilt, closing the parenthesis. So, yes, they're trying to use the city, and they said, we have a big river, we'll use the river, we'll clean the poop out of it. But an opening ceremony is a very delicate, balanced act. So, all in all, the shots were bad. They could not find the right shot at the right time. The rain didn't help at all. There was a shit ton of rain. Half of the time where we were looking into the images, the lenses had water stains on it. I mean, it was like watching a 720p video on YouTube. But besides that, a lot of things happened there. It did look a bit more like Eurovision, like some people mentioned. A lot of things no one really understood, like the Assassin's Creed person with the hoodie on doing parkour at the rooftops. That was quite an interesting one. I appreciated how they tried to blend in things that they had shot beforehand with real-time events to show a sense of continuity and to do some of the more special and difficult parts and blend it in. However, for the people who paid a lot of money to be there and watch the opening, this was quite an underwhelming experience. Sitting in the rain all day long to watch some boats go by the distance with the athletes waving and trying to watch everything else from screens because this is what happened. A lot of the things that were happening were not meant for a viewer who is sitting on one side of the river in a seat. It was much more televisioned, let's say. So we have some complaints there. Celine Dion tried to save the show with a really good performance. One of my favorite moments was seeing the motion sickness on people because these ships, the river, it was raining a lot, so the river was having some waves. Not everyone was ready for a long boat ride. Good moments for me include seeing a headless Marie Antoinette out of a window and then zooming out and seeing, I don't know, 50 headless Marie Antoinettes singing opera with metal sounds and fire. This was quite an interesting highlight, well executed. Again, I appreciate how they used a lot of the buildings that they have, trying to save money overall. This was a big concept, and you know that the Olympics have been a bit like that. The cities that say, "Hey, I want to host the Olympics," are declining in the past years. And actually, there was only Paris and Los Angeles putting their names for 2024. Only two cities competing for the Olympics. This has never happened before. So it was decided for the first time in the Olympic Games history that they're going to give them both. So 2024 is Paris and 2028 is going to be Los Angeles, because they were worried that maybe no one wants to host 2028. And this has to do a lot with the complexity it has to host such an event, to how much investment is needed. So it's an interesting one, looking at the French trying to not over invest in building stadiums, venues, and everything. By the way, the whole concept of the Olympic Games started in ancient Greece. The time of the Olympics was a time of peace and a time of truce, where all war activities would stop. No war seemed to be stopping for these Olympics, which is such a big irony. Thinking about the spirit of Olympic Games meant peace, at least while they last. We don't seem to be capable for even that, even though the teams are taking place and the flags are being flown. So anyway, I don't have any misconceptions that the Olympic Games would be this unifying event for the world, but the truce is an important part of it. So it just adds to the whole hypocrisy watching the fiesta go. If you don't know, you learn it now, but there is one thing you should know about the river. We call it Sikuanas in Greek, so I will use the Greek name because why not? They want to host a lot of the swimming competitions there, but the river has a lot of poop, actual poop. So the river has been used for centuries as part of the sewage system. And they have a sewage system when, if there is an overflooding, so if it rains too much, then things are diverted into the river. That's the easiest way I can explain it. But basically, when it rains too much, the normal sewage gets split into sewage lines and the river to prevent flooding, which is a smart system. A lot of cities have it that have rivers. But if you want to swim in the river, then you can understand that this is a bit tricky. So, 1 billion euro project. I know we talked about saving money, but I guess it's better to clean the Sikuana than having to build a lot of venues. And it has been a goal of the French for a long time. So they've tried to clean it. The mayor took a swim a few days ago. Problem was it rained so much these days that the overflowing happened, and the river is a bit poopsy again. So they have games going on Tuesday and Wednesday, and they say it will be clean by then. If not, I'm not sure what will happen and how the games will go. They're testing the water daily. Now, of course, I'm Greek, and Greeks, of course, remember 2004 and our own Olympic Games opening ceremony. So the comments of, "Hey, we did it better. You should check out our opening 20 years ago, still better than this." Those comments appeared, and to be honest, I haven't watched the 2004 Olympic start game in Athens since I was 12. So perhaps I will give it a go. Maybe you should too, and then we can all have an opinion. The Olympic Games are happening. I find this time super exciting. Any time of the day, there is a sport competing in the highest degree possible, which is very exciting. So I will be trying to catch as many games as I can. Now, what did you think of the opening ceremony? Feel free to write a comment. Share your thoughts, give it a rating. I will give it a 6.7 out of 10. I think there were good intentions and thought process behind it, but trying to put everything together in real time with a cohesive storyline and aesthetics and framing and pictures and the videography of it all. I don't think it worked out as much. But okay, wrapped up the Olympics. Let's get going. Next stop, the beautiful country of Greece. Over tourism is a quote unquote problem that we see in many places. I think the most news I've received are for Japan because of the yen dropping. Everyone is flooding in Japan, says Hermes, who went to Japan 1 year ago. I should probably do a guide about that at some point. So Japan is suffering. The citizens of Kyoto, for example, are in distress. You don't see anything but tourists on the street. They harass the local people by trying to get photos and chasing them, and it's kind of horrible. Probably you've heard about Barcelona, ongoing problem many years now. They pushed the Airbnbs outside of the city at some point. Now there were news of splashing water guns to tourists, exactly the same way as I do with the pigeons, by the way. Didn't seem to be very effective. And also Greece, with the tourists flooding the islands, which are not equipped or have infrastructure to host so many thousands of people. You know, Greece already passed this embarrassing 6 days work week, trying to find a way to keep serving the thousands of tourists without having to look at the horrible conditions people work in the tourism industry, just turning a blind eye and allowing working practices that should not be part of a fair and equal society to exist. But now we had even more incidents of extremely altruistic approach, let's say. And this comes from the mayor of Santorini, one of the most famous islands in the world, with thousands and thousands of tourists disembarking every day from cruise ships. So the mayor asked citizens to stay inside as much as they can so they do not obstruct the tourists. This is a real statement made by someone who is elected by the people. So this sounds like a great deal. More than 50% of Greeks don't have money to even do vacation. The ones who happen to stay or have a place in one of these islands, suffering from overpopulation from the price is skyrocketing, because if you're a Greek competing with foreign tourists in your island for prices, good luck with that. And now the mayor is even asking you to just stay quiet, stay inside. If you're working 6 days a week and you have one day where you could be, how about you lock yourself inside so you don't get in the way of people who are trying to walk the narrow streets? Thank you very much. Also to note here that, for example, the island of Naxos, a very famous Greek island as well, has more swimming pools than permanent residents this year. And this is because so many of these guest houses, hotels, the villas people build, they love having swimming pools. Well, these are some of the driest islands in the Aegean, and this year in particular, it has been the driest year in Greece for some time. It's interesting to notice that other parts of Europe are the opposite. Berlin has had the most wet year it has since decades. The water reserves are filled, and seriously, it's the peak of the summer and it's still raining every day. And other places are having extreme droughts. Hello, climate change. But yeah, in Greece, the water reserves are in historical low points. I think building all these swimming pools is a great idea, and we can use the tears of the collective youth of Greece's future generations to fill them in once the water is out. Last complaining, this is turning into a rant episode, is it? Okay. Last thing for Greece, just a tiny bit of news. Healthcare. Okay, Greece has a public healthcare system that has been in a warlike zone over the past, I don't know, 10, 15 years, with cuts after cuts, with mergers happening, with units shutting down, hardcore effort to push for privatization over one of the few things that is working well in this country. So, at the moment, destroying the public care system is so bad that hospitals don't have enough doctors. The doctors are quitting. They're looking for better conditions of work, either in the private sector or abroad. They are forced to go back to back shifts, overpopulated hospitals to run ER and emergency shifts back to back. Their overtime is the worst paid in the EU. It's an extremely stressful condition. So, when the system around them is shit and there is no infrastructure, just people on top of each other waiting in emergency rooms, the doctors are the ones that suffer the most because they have to stretch themselves over and over again to cover these gaps. So, what's happening now? Instead of improving the conditions, improving, I don't know, the salaries or improving the overtime pay or improving some of the conditions, because they cannot find doctors, the Ministry of Health decided that he will either make doctors cover shifts where needed, otherwise they get kicked out of the prescription system for medicine. Can you imagine that? This is a great bully blackmail situation where any doctor needs to be able to prescribe, and they can prescribe through the government prescription system. So then you go to a pharmacy and you get what you need. Now, the government is actually threatening to kick out doctors who don't cover shifts in the public hospitals. They're called to cover for that shift, and if they decline, they're going to get kicked out from the prescription system. So this is wild. This is extortion. This feels so wrong. Instead of looking to fix all the problems and pathogens and conditions in your healthcare system, you are extorting people and pushing them even further. So, yes. By the way, this is the same government that was criticizing the previous government for asking private clinics to help in COVID. The level of hypocrisy. So during COVID, if you remember how crazy the world was, a lot of private clinics had ICU rooms and they were not giving them to people who didn't have money. Meanwhile, people were staying out of ICU because there were not any ICUs left in the public hospitals and they were dying. And the government criticized this. The now government criticizes so much, like it is, an authoritative way to act in a state of national emergency. And now they're the same ones that are threatening doctors, cutting them out of the prescription system if they don't cover shifts in a devastating public healthcare system. So, anyway, Greek doctors are heroes. They do it for their conscience in the public system. It's not the way they're making money, it's the way they are feeling that they're contributing. And when they're broken enough mentally, they go to private healthcare or different countries and finally get something going for them. Okay, I'm seeing that this podcast is turning a bit long. It turned out a little bit of a nagging, but I'll close with a few random things and wrap it up. Spotify. Do you know that it had a running feature that they have since then discontinued? I thought that this was a dream of mine because I remember when I first tried Spotify almost, 8, 9 years ago, I remember that I was running and it would match my tempo and bring me music in the same BPM as my pace. And I thought, this is insane. It was one of the reasons I started having Spotify at the time. And I completely forgot about it until today. And I realized, hey, was this a dream? Wasn't it Spotify that could just match your tempo when running? And I looked it up, and it was true. Spotify was doing this. It would match your tempo when you're running any given time, and they discontinued that. I still don't know why, but Spotify, if you're listening to this was such a cool feature, and nothing has replaced it for 10 years now. So why don't you just open that thing up again? I find it extremely satisfying to have a matching tempo song. If you didn't know, now you know. Now, what's the point in knowing something that is not there for you anymore? I'm not sure, but just know that it could be. On more random things, I have bots that are reaching out over email, pretending that they want to help with my podcast. And the thing is that they're probably using some sort of AI to pick the description of the podcast and to pick some of the texts, trying to pretend that they've listened to it. So I get some of these emails saying how my podcast is enlightening and enriching and touching on the expat life in Berlin, which it doesn't do at all. This is why I know these emails are definitely fake. But yes, they want to collaborate. They want me to pay some money. They're pretending my podcast is good, but they don't fool me. I know it's not good. Lastly, I want to say that the podcast is actually unbanned from Instagram. I was banned for some time. I don't know why. They said that I look like an AI. My posts look like an AI, but now it's there, which means that maybe I start some advertising as well, and then we grow and grow even more. Don't forget, the goal is to take over the world, achieve global domination, and then fix the public healthcare system in Greece and bring some water from Berlin all the way down to the islands of Greece and other big projects like that. They may sound weird, but they're still better than the projects like Neom and that line city in the desert that the Saudi Arabia is doing. So I'm still good. In worldwide news, sharks off the coast of Brazil are testing positive for cocaine. Yes, some marine biologists tested sharp-nosed sharks taken from the shores of Rio de Janeiro, and they're high in levels of cocaine in their muscles and livers. The concentrations were almost 100 times higher than previously reported for other aquatic creatures. I've read things like this before. I'm not sure why we're measuring cocaine on the fish compared to other substances, but okay. From all the things that the sharks could be consuming, from all the chemicals we dump down the waters, perhaps that's not the worst. I wonder if they test them for MDMA and LSD and other types of drugs as well, just to understand a bit the mix. But I will wrap it here now. I hope you had a great listen. Thank you for staying so long. If for any reason you like this weird voice in the microphone giving you slow paced news, rants, and it all, you are more than welcome to give me a follow on Spotify, yet another expert podcast. Give me a follow on Instagram. Put the bell on, rate 5 stars, write comments. I will just boost this podcast or show your support in any way or form. I will be here weekly. And as a parting thought, with all the things that are going wrong in the world, don't you think that if aliens wanted, they could just appear and give magic mushrooms to every single person on Earth at the same time and just force us to watch the same documentary? I really believe that this could change the global consciousness. So all we're missing is the aliens. I think we have some good nature documentaries going on. Okay, until next week. Ciao.